We're here at the Impact Economy Summit, and I'd love to hear from you two. What's been your experience today? Leander.
Damn it, he was starting. Well, it started with the sunrise on these mountains, and since it's the last day of sunshine, maybe it's really to be appreciated, and now we're in this. So that framing is amazing, and inside that building, it's really bustling and bubbling, and that was kind of deliberate realization from yesterday that there's so much more heat and content and bubble stuff that needs to be thrown in right away, and thus we tweaked the agenda a little bit, and that worked quite well to bring a lot of hot ideas in close proximity, and that was probably felt during the morning.
And so there's a lot of passion in the room. There's a lot of intellectual capacity. Maybe you can share a little bit about your experience as far as how hot it is.
Let's see, how hot is it? It's pretty hot. There's a lot of things going on where it seems like as we're kind of having like this organic development collaborative process, there are a lot of people who have different ideas for where things need to go. For me personally anyway, I feel like I always should have some sort of goal to strive toward. And so I'm still trying to find that, and that's where an interesting dynamic starts to come into play, because whether everyone else's goal is to essentially have a specific goal or to specifically not have a goal and come away with it saying this was a good experience, there seems to be a difference in approach of communication. And I think a lot of the breakouts so far have caused a lot of those types of communications to start to become more visible on the surface. And so now day two is kind of like this. We're kind of getting to the point where we're in each other's faces a little bit more, getting a little bit more comfortable, and starting to figure out exactly where we're going to decide to fit into the picture. Or so I hope, or maybe I'm just dreaming.
Well, I mean, there is an element of emergence happening, right? And so when you have
always
when you have so much work coming into the same space together, how do you share power? Leander, maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Power is probably not anything that I have ever thought about this morning.
Okay.
So, well, if you have to share power, then you're already on the wrong track, I guess.
Why do you say that?
Because power will only generate counter power, and you will always just have a clash of mountain sheep of some sort.
I think that I think I can go on this. So I think that with essentially a collaborative where everyone kind of starts at the same level, people who take positions of facilitating are often perceived as positions of power, but those positions are in fact filling a vacuum, and that vacuum is essentially a vacuum of service. And so the attitude here, and I can see where Leander says, I don't even know if that's the best way to describe it, is because here people are collaborating to serve, and those might be considered leaders or people who are stepping up to the plate to lead, but in fact they're just stepping up to the plate to serve, and which is, in my opinion, a lot more wholesome or an organic perspective, and helps prevent the warping process a little bit, protects the wood.
I guess I was just looking to surface that there is power in the room. And
there's people in the room.
Yeah, there's powerful people, ideas, concepts, and yeah, it's essentially the clashing of those. That's
but this is not power per se. This is really just unarticulated objectives, assumptions, ideas, hopes, aspirations, and of course, if they are not really clearly stated, and if there's no space to actually have people show up as people, then they'll come in with a role and with a hat on, and a perceived or an imagined hat, and that creates these tensions that might be expressed as power struggles or something, but that's all part of that game. And if the attention is so big as will change the economy, then of course anything along the way will happen and probably not feel very stringent. And with these big objectives also comes the big threat of not actually getting to that very outcome at the end of just 5 days. But luckily you cannot not change the world, and the better you get at doing that intentionally, the more satisfying it will be.
Yes.
You look at it like this. If you introduce the word power into a conversation, it has a tendency to kind of ruin everything a little bit.
Sorry.
For example,
I totally ruined this podcast.
That was terrible. But, so, like, for example, you know, I have a friend and he's dating someone, and I say, oh, who wears the pants or who has the power? And then instantly there's like, and then it ruins the whole thing. Instead of like, oh, cool, so who does the laundry? Oh, I do, ha ha ha. But if you say who has the power and who gets to tell the other person to do laundry, then you have the problems.
Well, I like to take off pants.
Yeah.
So in closing, what are your hopes for the rest of the day?
Oh,
More sunshine.
yeah, no, actually, I was going to go on that too. More sunshine. I mean, before it all fades away. But I'm kind of looking forward to hearing what came out of this breakout session that just happened between the two different parties. Of course, I believe they'll also be recorded via podcast. And yeah, I guess Leander.
We're going to throw in a whole lot of more concepts and topics and theories and initiatives just to have that out of the way, so that tomorrow it can come from this wealth of perspectives and attitudes towards, well, wriggle it down to something more coherent and shared.
This has been Leander Bindewald and Daniel Kim. Thank you so much, and Impact Economy 2015.